What's up, guys? It's Uncle Freedom coming to you on another glorious and well-deserved day off. And today we're going to talk about something that people have been waiting on for a hot minute, and that is what started off as uncomfortable truths about law enforcement and quickly devolved into some uncomfortable truths as well as myths about law enforcement, because that is pretty prevalent. I apologize if my speech inflection is a little weird. I bit the crap out of my tongue last night. It's kind of swollen on the side, so I'm going to try not to slur too much. So, myths and uncomfortable truths about law enforcement. Number one, all cops are tyrant pigs, man. They're just doing the government's bidding. I don't know why I give that dude a southern accent. I'm from the South. I can make fun of them all I want. There are literally hundreds of thousands of interactions between the good citizens of America and law enforcement every single day. Hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions of interactions every single solitary day. If cops were overwhelmingly bad and tyrannical as a group, you would never know the names of the bad cops that did the bad thing. But we can all get on board, cops and the good citizens alike, and hate on the ones that are breaking laws and doing dumb stuff, because nobody hates a terrible cop or a bad cop as much as good cops do, because it makes us look bad as a whole. Hence the reason we hear things like all cops are tyrants, or FTP, or all cops are pigs. What is it? Or ACAB or ACAP, all cops are bastards, all cops are pigs. Right? We hear those things. But if that was the case, you wouldn't be able to keep track of it. And honestly, if they were all bad, we would have enough of a stake that you would probably never hear about it at all anyway. It would just be normal. But it's not normal. It's completely out of the ordinary when a cop does something incredibly stupid that violates someone's constitutional rights. I know somebody's going to yell, but they qualified immunity. We're going to cover that in Volume 2. Because I'm going to hurt some feelings with that one, because I think a lot of you don't know what it actually is. So yeah, no, not all cops are tyrants. Not all cops are pigs. They don't really care. Cops just are trying to do their job and keep their community safe for the most part. And a lot of times, you see guys that all cops are excessive force and blah. Next up, cops are just hitting their quota, man. I'd be careful if you drive around the end of the month, because cops got to meet their quota. I remember hearing this when I was 16 years old. That is complete and utter bullcrap. It doesn't exist. In fact, there is a law that says you cannot impose a quota on a law enforcement agency for citations. You can't. There are agencies that track the cop's interactions with the public. So if you have a cop that primarily runs traffic duty, if that cop is not actively pulling over cars, right? Because here's the thing, I stop a lot of cars. I could stop 2 to 3 to 4 times as many cars if I pulled over every single moving violation I saw. I don't. I pick a couple of moving violation things I'm going to look for, and unless it's really bad and egregious out of that ordinary, I'm probably not stopping you for it that day. But that's how you judge what the cops are doing when they're on shift. That's why we're not writing as many tickets, right? Like, cops don't always have to write tickets. I write very few tickets. I give a lot of written warnings, a lot of verbal warnings, and I just make contact with people. But there is no quota. It doesn't exist. Stop perpetuating the myth. It's not a real thing, right? Number 3, cops are pretending want to be military. That's why they got to wear their cool tactical vests and stuff when they do their traffic stops. You really need all that stuff out here in the rural community. Yes, we do. Because here's the thing that people don't seem to understand about that. Cops have always worn a duty belt, and cops, for the most part, have always worn body armor. What we've discovered, though, through longevity and cops that have been on the job for a long time, is that wearing an incredibly heavy duty belt on your hips for 10, 12 to 16 hours a day while sitting in a truck and running and doing all the stuff that cops do, it's really bad on your lower back, and it's terrible on your hips, right? You end up with guys that have crippling sciatic nerve pain in their mid-30s. They've been a cop for 15 years, and they're crippled almost because of wearing that stuff around. Testing was done. We discovered that if we put a lot of that weight up higher on an outer carrier, since we got to wear armor anyway, and armor is uncomfortable and hot, so if we're going to have to wear armor anyway, it was discovered that moving some of that weight up there and freeing up the hips resulted in less back pain, less injuries and stuff like that. So no, we're not doing it because we want to look tactical. We're doing it because it's actually safer for us to do it. What kills me are the agencies that won't let their guys run outer carriers because it looks too military. No, it doesn't. Like, my outer carrier looks like a Western shirt, bro. Like, it's not the same thing. Cops don't do shit, man. I told him it was that guy. I saw him. He did it. All right. let's talk about eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony is absolutely one of the most unreliable sources of information that we can get. There's a reason that cops like videotapes and written statements, right? Like, I told you, I don't know why I need to write a written statement, right? Because I'm going to pin you down to your answer. That's why. People get really, really mad. And I'll give this as an example. So I had a lady who was hell-bent that this situation took place, that it was a black male wearing a black hoodie and he went that way. He did in fact go that way, but it was a white dude wearing a red hoodie when I pulled the camera footage. How did she not know that? Because people suck as eyewitnesses, right? They are terrible at it. They can't remember little things. That's why you have things like guys that get their ass kicked and you ask them who the dude was. I don't know. Okay, was it a man, a woman, a Sasquatch? Like, what was it? They have no idea, right? Because human beings are terrible eyewitnesses. It's just the way it works because your brain overwrites material all the time. And when that happens, and not only that, your opinion of what you saw can be influenced by statements or things you saw after. Eyewitness testimony is wholly unreliable. So the next time you think cops don't do shit because you told them it was that dude, there's probably a reason for it. You may not like that, but it's reality. Again, because facts don't care about your feelings, man. Like, people are terrible witnesses. It's just a thing. Random spider. Number 5, cops are just people that couldn't cut it in the military. So here's the deal. Maybe if we went back into the part of history that was relatively unaffected by conflict, which would be post-Iraq Gulf War and pre-global war on terror, you're probably right. Like, a lot of cops got into it that never had any kind of a service outside of that. However, you'll find now that the overwhelming majority of your cops on the street that are somewhere between 29 or 28 and about 45 are all military veterans of the global war on terror. Because it takes a very specific kind of person to be a cop. The hours are terrible. The pay's not super great. It's dangerous a lot of the times. You're going to be asked to go do things that normal people don't want to do. And there's a 50-50 shot. Maybe you get shot that shift, maybe you don't, right? It takes a special person to continually put the gear on and go do that day after day, especially considering the climate towards law enforcement right now. Not only do you have to go do things that other people don't want to do, you are also hated universally by most people just because you have the uniform. You be the coolest guy in the world. They never get to that part because you have on the uniform, therefore you be bad, right? No. The overwhelming majority of cops you will find that are currently on the street are all former military guys. It's just how it is. Number 6, cops are all well-trained, experienced, and competent shooters. This is one of those myths, right? That's total bullcrap, man. Cops are absolutely not great shooters for the most part. I am an anomaly in the shooting world for law enforcement, and the guys that train with me are also anomalies. For the most part, law enforcement will send guys to specialized training for for firearms and stuff like that. If you have a really high-speed chief or a good sheriff that is willing to send guys to stuff to make them better shooters. Me as a firearms instructor have the philosophy that 99% of our job, we're clear. So this is a CR920X from Shadow Systems. 99% of our job doesn't involve the use of this. However, that 1% of our job that may need this is the most important skill set you can have. And that's how I view it, and that's how I train people. But that also means I have to constantly be evaluating and vetting and making my own skills better. The vast overwhelming majority of cops barely qualify on their state standards. And to give you an example of state standards for law enforcement, I'll just tell you a little bit about my state standard. My state standard is 50 rounds fired from 3 yards to 15 yards. Not past 15, only to 15. And your minimum allowable score for qualification is 70. So it's basically 2 points per bullet. That's 15 rounds. You can throw 15 out of 50 rounds and still pass. That's not great. But again, you have to do lowest common denominators. A lot of agencies could do it. We're a minimum 80 standard for doing that. Law enforcement instructors have to shoot at minimum a 90 into a reduced hit zone. So there's some guys that are better at it than others. But as a whole, law enforcement is not exceptionally, like, I said this in Uncomfortable Truths about instructors. I'll leave a link over here. If a dude's thing is I was a cop, which is the reason I'm a good shooter, that's crap, right? Cops as a whole are terrible at shooting guns. Trust me, I teach the ones at the academy. They're not exceptionally good. Sometimes there are really good guys to it because it's a fun sport. But for the most part, they're average at best. Some bordering towards average to mediocre, which are the ones that barely pass. And then there are some that we have no idea how they didn't shoot themselves. Number 7. Absolutely any idiot could be a cop. You ain't got, well, I mean, how smart do you got to be a cop? Pretty damn smart. I didn't know this. 100% legit. I had no idea the amount of mental load that went on in a cop's brain. And I'll tell you why. So, for the most part, as a cop, you have two kinds of academies that you can go to. You can have a high-stress academy, or you can have a high academic academy. Nebraska has a very high academic standard for law enforcement that comes through the academy. We are not a high-stress academy. High stress is kind of akin to military boot camp if you're an infantry guy. Rock steady. If you know, you know. Those guys, like, it's meant to break you down and to turn you into a better, strip away the layers and create you as something else. At least it was when I went through. However, law enforcement doesn't need to necessarily do that. But we do require you to be exceptionally smart at what we're trying to do. I hear a lot of people argue the complaint that cops don't know the law. Well, cops aren't lawyers. We're not required to know the law. We are required, however, to understand statutes. So, for example, in our law enforcement academy, you will take a course known as the con law test. Now, the con law test is an exceptionally long exam. And to give you an example of how law enforcement works, so the academy is somewhere 16 weeks, so 4 months. You will take at minimum 1 exam every single week that you're there. If you score below a 70, it's considered a failure. You can take a retest. However, if you score below a 70 on your retest, you are out and you don't get to come back. If you go through the academy and you fail and then pass your retake, and then you fail another and pass your retake, if you fail anything at all after that, you're out. You can't be a cop anymore. We hold people to a higher academic standard. Why is that? Well, if I'm on the streets and I see you breaking a law of some kind, first off, I have to be smart enough to know what that law was. Second, I have to know the actual intention of what you were doing that broke that law and the act that you did that violated. I have to know those things on site in order to charge you with anything to take you to jail. So when you hear, like, you see people say things, cops are idiots, they didn't know this, they didn't know that. Here's the thing. People like to think that cops don't understand Fourth Amendment, right? You would be wrong. That gets hammered on us. We have to take multiple classes on it every year to understand where we can stand as a cop, where we can be as a cop, what we can do, what we can't do, when we can take things, when we can't take things. All of that is constantly being addressed and reevaluated and updated. Cops are like, I can tell you for the con law, like constitutional law is First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, understand the Fifth Amendment, Miranda rights, warnings, 14th Amendment. You understand and learn those, but then you also have to learn Intro to Criminal Justice, which is an entire college course on how the court and law system works, right? Who does what, when they do what, how it escalates through things, where it can be appealed at. We have to understand and know all of those things. And one of the hardest tests you'll take, at least in our academy, is known as the ASS test, or Arrest, Search, and Seizure, because everything that takes place on that test is done in the field without a book to help you out. You have to know when you can do things, because if you mess it up at any point, best case scenario, all your evidence is kicked out. Worst case, you're in jail because you violated somebody's Fourth Amendment rights. So cops are exceptionally smart. Your average cop on the street may be a fat donut eating piece of crap, but he is a actually relatively smart guy that tests very well. Otherwise, he can't be a cop, right? Nebraska has a very high academic standards. A lot of places don't have that, but they have a very high stress standards. What you end up with in a very high stress standard school are cops that function incredibly well under pressure. In a very high academic school, what you have is cops that remain cops for a long time because they don't make stupid errors that violate people's rights. Training issues, man. Oh, cops are just gang members with badges. You know who makes that statement? People that just got busted. Right? Here's the thing. Cops can't take you to jail for no reason, man. Like, I love hearing that. I didn't do nothing. Nobody ever did anything when the cops show up. I promise you. However, if we do things and it gives us enough information, because I don't know what people think happens, right? Like, if I arrest you for a thing, I had to have enough evidence that I can tangibly show that it took place and you are the one that committed it. And then I have to sign my name to a whole bunch of documentation as you go to jail so that that can go to an attorney that's going to be run over by your attorney. And if at any point what I did is wrong or I didn't have a reason to do what I did, I'm in trouble. So, no, not how that works. Cops aren't gang members with badges, though cops can be cliquey. It's just a thing. Number 9, never ever trust the cops. Cops are these same people that are scream F the po-po and that you should never ever talk to cops and cops are all bastards, are the exact same ones that are very mad when I show up and don't do enough in their eyes because they just got ripped off during their last drug deal. Fact, true story. People will call the cops because somebody robbed them in a drug deal. Because it's the principle, right? But they will absolutely do it. It's a real thing. It's the damnedest thing you've ever seen, but it really takes place. It's wild. The never trust the cop things, we see that a lot because that's kind of an institutional way of thinking. People get that way because somebody somewhere has had a bad experience with a cop, which has influenced how they view cops at their adult life. Not all cops are the cops you grew up with, man. You have to trust somebody in this world. I like to think I'm a trustworthy dude because here's the thing. I'm never going to BS you. If you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. If you're not wrong, I'm going to tell you good news. You're not wrong. I love this one too. Cops are absolutely always looking for a reason to use force. Dude, do you realize how much paperwork I got to do if I so much as take you to the ground? Like, I'm not even talking like hit you with a metal stick or tased you or pepper sprayed you or delivered a knee strike to your common peroneal, right? Just me taking you to the ground requires a whole bunch of extra paperwork and scrutiny. Believe me, cops are not hunting a reason to hurt you because there's a lot more paperwork, if for no other reason than there's a lot more paperwork. Never mind the fact that cops generally just don't want to get into a fight with you. There are some, but it's rarer than you think. Bonus point number 1. Cops write tickets because they get bonuses. I don't know who made this up. And if somebody could please tell me what agency gets paid off of the tickets that they write, I would like to know how they work that out because budgets suck and law enforcement is terribly underfunded as it is. We don't get bonuses for anything, man. We never see a dime of anything we do that has to do with a ticket or a citation. The only time cops see money is if we raid you for drugs and we seize a bunch of money. Some of that money stays behind as part of the drug fund, right? So that we can continue doing and getting more equipment. For the most part, though, like, dude, we don't get anything for writing a ticket, right? It's you wrote a ticket. You know what you get for writing a ticket? Extra paperwork, a report you're guaranteed to have to do, and now you're going to go to court. And court's not the funnest thing to do as a cop. Bonus number 2. They shot that guy in the back. He was just trying to surrender. They shot him in the back. Tennessee v. Garner. For those of you that are law enforcement, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you that aren't, that's the actual Supreme Court case law. Tennessee v. Garner states that if you did something simplified, mind you, I'm not going to go verbatim on this, but if you were doing something stupid over here and endangering the life of this human being or just tried to end this human being's life cycle, and then you run away from me and I know you're still armed, I can shoot you in the back. Because you've already shown me that you're going to use lethal force. I know you have the means on you. At that point, I do whatever I have to do to ensure that you don't round the corner and stab the woman coming from the ice machine. Because you know what happens if I don't shoot you and you run around the corner and you stab the woman from the ice machine? I'm going to be sued by that woman's family because I had every right to shoot you and I didn't do it. But what you see a lot now is cops are very gun shy to get into altercations because they are viewed so negatively by the public. And the only thing like most cops want in their life is to not end up in the news and to not become case law. Like that is a cop's driving goal in their life. They don't want to be on the news for a bad reason, and they don't want to be the reason that case law exists because it's not a fun time. But for the most part, like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But that's the reason that people get shot in the back running away from cops. Because if you've already done it and you know you can do it again and you running away from me, I can't take the risk that you're going to kill somebody else while I try to find you. Okay? I can shoot you and stop you at that point. That's real life. That's case law. That's a real thing. Go look it up. Tennessee v. Garner. So anyway, guys, I am Uncle Freedom. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed Volume 1. Volume 2 is going to be recorded right now. So guys, as always, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And until next time. I'll see you later.